we know, especially as entrepreneurs, if you want to change something, go do it. No one's going to do it for you. So you have to get involved.
All right, so I'm so excited that we're going to go to the same conference in Puerto Rico in a month, Brett. And I just love the fact that we didn't see each other for years and then connected at an investor summit in Puerto Rico earlier in January. And so I've gotten you plugged into the Liberty Ventures Network and are doing a lot more with GPOPlus. But thanks for joining the podcast and thanks for everything that you're doing and being an example of a principled business leader building a great business right now.
I'm trying. I think anyone that wants to be an entrepreneur needs to get their head examined. But yeah, it's definitely has its challenges, but it's also awesome, man. It's awesome. And Puerto Rico, that was great running into you, man. Because you're right. It was a number of years. I got out of politics. I had to get back to work to make money, and in doing so, I mean, I was shocked, and I got that WhatsApp text for you that you were going to be there. I was so thrilled, and then we had a great conversation. That brings us to kind of where we are now. Lots have happened in this last year.
Yeah, but let's take a step backwards because before we get into what you're doing with GPO Plus, I want you to share with everyone your backstory here because you've done business, you've done politics, you've done nonprofit work, and now you're back into the business space. So what's been the trajectory for you with all this?
Do you want me to start in the beginning?
Sure.
Sure. So let's alienate a bunch of the listeners right off the bat. So I dropped out of high school. I joined the Army. I became a stockbroker when I was really young. I did Army Reserves, so I did a bunch of training, came home, became a stockbroker at a young age, had my own New York State broker-dealer at a young age, took a bunch of companies public during the dot-coms, lost everything faster than I made it. Then I regrouped on a lacrosse scholarship in Vermont, went to Green Mountain College, came back, started the Liquid Group, which was an investor relations, public relations firm, grew that from the East Coast to West Coast and ultimately to Las Vegas. I ended up selling that, it's been like 20 some odd years now, but I ended up selling that, and then I had a non-compete, couldn't get back into public relations, didn't want to get back into finance, and so I got into nightlife of all things. I started throwing events, and I built the first niche social network for nightlife, entertainment, and fashion called VegasClubScene.com, which morphed into other markets like Miami club scene, San Diego club scene, New York club scene. And it was a pretty cool life, jet setting and throwing all these awesome events. But the real was the technology, because it was like back in, you got to think of 2002, 2003. I've got a division called Club Scene Text. That's back when your phone would not ring, but it would make a noise, and people are like, I don't know what this thing is. It's like, well, you're getting a text message. What's a text message? I'm like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's a text. But we were that early and trying to go through all those technology challenges. Like, I deal with some of these young programmers. It's like, dude, you realize I spent like 25 grand developing a big block of code just to find out where you were coming from, so I knew which market to serve up. Are you in San Diego? You get San Diego club scene, Vegas club scene. Now it's a snippet of code that's available for free. And so, like, going through all those challenges early on in my career from a technology standpoint helped really shape where we go with technology now, because again, we've been through the trials and tribulations, and you remember, even we're about the same age. Remember when you used to have to network a computer? You had to network a computer. You didn't just turn it on and find a Wi-Fi and put in a password. You had to go into the MAC address and all that stuff. And I don't want to get into weeds, but the long story short is I stayed with that technology trajectory for a long time. I kind of a programmer, designer, UI, UX, and all that jazz. And then, let's see, when I was doing Vegas club scene, that got me into nightclubs. I've owned a couple nightclubs, New York, Las Vegas, minority control in most of them. Some of them I was a partner in. And then, it's like October of '09, man, that's when it was like, I'm having a lot of fun and we're making money, but like, this isn't what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to like really do something good. And so, yeah, I got into politics. And the reason I got into politics was twofold. One was because I wanted to do something. I wanted to change things. And we know, especially as entrepreneurs, if you want to change something, go do it. No one's going to do it for you. So you have to get involved. And I got involved because, again, I did not like the way that the whole funding mechanism worked from the Securities and Exchange Commission and FINRA. The laws were just ridiculous. They're all established in 1933, 1934, 1940 with different securities acts. And that still, for the most part, with the exception of some crowdfunding legislation that happened with the Jobs Act, it's still pretty much about the same. And it's draconian. It's like, I really struggle with the fact that, here, I live in Las Vegas and I love Las Vegas. Big fan of Las Vegas. We can take all of the money that we have and go right to a casino and put it on black if we want to. There's no one running up and saying, hey, do you know there's a high chance you can lose all your money and all these risk factors? And no, you can go do that because that's normal business. But why can't you do that if I have a great idea and you might not be a high net worth individual and accredited investor? Why can't you invest in my company? Maybe we grow up together. Maybe you really believe in it. Maybe you work part-time to help me out and help me get there. So that's kind of why I got into politics. And then, the more I got involved, the more local I got, the less I could care about the federal stuff, the more I cared about, what's happening in my own backyard. So I got really involved with Nevada politics. And I did that for a number of years. And as you know, and that's where we met, I was chairman of the Libertarian Party for 2 terms here in Nevada, 3 terms on the Libertarian National Committee, either a fellow, senior fellow, or associate with, the Leadership Institute, worked at Turning Point, the State Policy State Policy Network, Nevada State Policy Research Institute, goes on and on. So it's all the usual suspects, for conservatives and libertarians, and did that. And then after the 2016 election, I was very, very involved with the legalization of cannabis here in Nevada. So we helped from the very stages of getting that on the ballot. And then once it was on the ballot, we had, we're very fortunate with Governor Gary Johnson and Governor Bill Weld, where we had, these rallies that we did in Reno and Las Vegas and get out the vote and voter registration drives to try and, push not just for our presidential and vice presidential candidate, and of course the down ticket, but also the ballot initiatives. So question 2 we passed, which was regulate marijuana like alcohol. And then I got involved with, in the cannabis space here in Nevada with cultivation and production. And I realized early on, man, that when you look at the tax structure and how crazy it is in the cannabis world, all the municipalities and state and federal and the local government, they look at us like a piggy bank. And that was the problem. It's like, in order to really be successful with cannabis, you got to have a rich uncle and the patience of the Catholic Church. And we found CBD and we realized, oh my gosh, this CBD product could be really big. Federally, it's legal, especially when you had the Hemp Act of 2018, which is part of the Farm Bill. And so we got into that and we started CBD GPO. GPO stands for Group Purchasing Organization. And where we started was, CBD isolate. So that's the main ingredient when you're making CBD products, or it's also the main ingredient when you're converting into other cannabinoids like Delta 8, Delta 9, THCA, THCP, all the stuff that's federally legal. Now, some states, of course, have outlawed that, but there's very few that have done that, especially the ones that don't have any cannabis laws. It's pretty much available to sell. And these are fights that we're always constantly going through and battles that we're always trying to fight. And so we did that for a while. And then COVID kicked in. But right before COVID kicked in, we had an opportunity to go public. And so instead of calling the company CBD GPO, where we were doing, well, let me just kind of finish that. So with the group purchasing, let's say, Alexander, you needed 5 kilos of CBD isolate because you're a lab, and another lab needed 5, and these guys needed 10. Well, I aggregated that together, and then I went out and got an order of size, whatever the MOQ was to reach those minimum order quantity, whatever I needed to do to reach those levels to get those discounts. So instead of you paying $10,000 a kilo, I might be getting it for $6,500 or $7,000. I give it to you for $8,000. You're saving $2,000. We're making the spread. Who's better than us? Well, the price of CBD isolate, a kilo, went from $10,000 to over a 2.5-year period down to like less than $250. And so that market kind of fell out. So then we got into the manufacturing side, and then that's when we decided we might have something here, not just in the CBD, but with the group purchasing, that we should take this company public. So we went public May 5th, 2020, arguably one of the worst times to go public. And when we were doing that, all of our primary business units were non-essential. So we kind of had to figure out what to do. So we survived as a public company. We entered into the healthcare space and did some COVID test sales and antigentest.com, all these different things just to stay alive. But then it was April 2022, we decided, hey, let's rip off this Band-Aid, even though we're making, a couple $100,000 a month, but we know that this stuff, COVID's eventually going to fade away, and it did. But when we made that conscious decision, we said, let's start GPOPlus, which would be the distribution arm of our company, and let's really go after smoke shops and vape shops and get our products into those stores and other products that we represent. And then in December of 2022, we acquired a company called Betterment Retail Solutions out of Lubbock, Texas. And what was really attractive about that is they had distribution to all these different gas stations and convenience stores. And more specifically, one of the biggest clients was a company called Yesway. Yesway also is a conglomerate, and they're the 19th largest convenience store chain in the country. And so that to us was really interesting and really attractive. And even though the company wasn't doing well, we saw an opportunity to really make it more efficient and make it profitable. So we went down that path, and that's kind of where we are now. We spent the last 18 months getting really 2 years now, getting really, really good at DSD, direct store distribution, direct store delivery, where we send our drivers out to the locations. They and we built out some whiz-bang technology as well called PRISM. So they walk in, they take a before picture, any of the products that they add to our areas. We have a kiosk, and it's called the Feel Good Shop Plus. It's right by the counter in over 500 locations. And what that is a curated product mix of all of our intoxicating hemp products. So those are your Delta 8, your Delta 9s, your THCP, THCA. We have Kratom in some store. That's a big market that's opening up for us right now. And then we also do nicotine. We sell disposable nicotine vapes, also right next to the cash registers. So we've got amazing real estate. And now what we're trying to do is get into more product categories. So we want to get into non-age-gated products. I want to sell chapstick. Whatever you don't need to have an ID to buy a product, that's what we want. Because again, you're probably like me, maybe you're not, but I've got hundreds of Google alerts set up specifically to find out what the municipalities are doing for all these laws, for all the products that we sell. And we signed up for it. I'm not really going to complain about it, but it would be better to sell, stuffed animals or windshield wipers or motor oil or anything, again, that doesn't require an ID. And we're doing very well with that. So, our first non-age-gated product is gift cards. And so with Yesway also, we distribute to all their locations, all their gift cards. And so that was the first one, and now we're getting into more general merchandise products. So it's kind of a long rant. I apologize for that, but that's where we're at.
I appreciate the logic of the story, though. It wasn't your intention to end up here, but it makes sense that you started in business, you explored different avenues in there, realized the challenges that entrepreneurs face thanks to the government, so sought to try and change things there, got very involved in one particular area in cannabis, and then focused on that as a businessman, evolved that in a number of ways, discovered the opportunity with group purchasing, then figured out a way to keep evolving it through time. That is the natural... That is the kind of very natural story of an entrepreneur, just seeing opportunities, learning from everything, and bringing it in. And one of the things that I think also ties in that I didn't know before was how much you incorporated technology back in your promotion days, because I know that's a big part of what you're doing with GPOPlus now.
Well, yeah, GPOPlus, we're an AI-powered distribution company now. So with our PRISM technology, again, we built this technology platform, PRISM. Initially, it was called MSRP. Initially, it was out of necessity. We're a publicly traded company. We follow GAAP compliant. And to be able to recognize revenue, you have ASC 606, which is like a litmus test of what you need to do to be able to recognize that revenue. So we built all that into the technology, because what I don't want to have is my auditors say, we need to send someone physically to all the locations you're in. Well, right now we're in 500 plus locations. My goal is to be in 20,000 locations by the end of 2027. And that's a big, lofty goal, and we're going to get there. But to be smart, thinking about where we're going and how we're going to get there, what can we do now from a technology standpoint to work smarter, not harder, and start implementing now? Because if I make a mistake, it's a lot easier to make a mistake and cure it when you have 500 locations versus 20,000 locations or 5,000 locations. So it's like, on one hand, last year we did a little over 4.3 million in gross sales, and that's good for our first year out of the gate. We're happy about that. But it wasn't a growth year. It was let's get really, really good at DSD year. And now moving into first quarter next year, which is, it's a couple weeks away. Moving into first quarter next year, we're going to be adding more chains, more gas stations and convenience store chains. And then this is going to start to be our real first growth year, which we're excited about. But going back to your point, a lot of these conversations start off with, hey, wouldn't it be cool if, and the next thing you know, we have a piece of technology behind it or something like that. So, because our goal is to do what? We want to make things more efficient. We want to drive, profitability. These are things that we want to do. My light's going on off, but these are things that we want to do. And you do that and achieve that by being open-minded, trying to always question everything, and always say, can we do it better? And we do that. But I don't want to sacrifice things like, we talked about this at Principal Business. Crony capitalism is the single biggest issue that drives me nuts with politics. And it's everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere. Whether it's a local thing. You ask anyone in Las Vegas, what's our state tree? There's one answer. The orange cone. There's construction all over the city. It's ridiculous. Those cones cost us a fortune as taxpayers. And they're everywhere. And that happens because of crony capitalism. There's places where there's cones out that we won't see construction for months. But that's job security. People doing stuff like that. That's the stuff that I can't stand. But it doesn't matter if it's a cannabis company paying a lobbyist trying to get rid of, CBD. That's the crony capitalism stuff that I can't stand and I want to avoid. So we obviously don't practice any of that stuff. We take care of our employees. We put our employees and our retailers and our customers first. And we are driven by profit, of course, but we're building something more than just a profit generating machine. That's the consequence, but what we're building now is getting good people. We have very, very low turnover with our employees and our team. We try and take care of them the best we can. We want to go above and beyond for all of our retailers to make sure that we're solving as many problems as we can and helping make their life easier. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now, and it's just going to get better with technology. The more technology that we have to throw at this. I mean, Chris, I think we're going to be a data company in the next 4 years because of just the raw level of data we have. And if you look at our industry, man, I won't set you up with go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I wanted to actually get into that more and have you explain the direct-to-store delivery industry and just where you fit into it, both in terms of the competitors out there and also just how much technology is actually involved in delivering the inventory to gas stations, convenience stores, all the stores that you work with.
Okay, so without naming any names, so let's take a big step back. So again, what we do is we send our drivers. One more step back. When we acquired Betterment Retail Solution, they had one distribution center in Lubbock, Texas, servicing as far north as Wyoming and South Dakota, as far east as Iowa, as far west as Gallup, New Mexico, and then just one facility servicing all that. They were sending out big box trucks with per diems and hotel rooms, and it wasn't efficient. So we moved to more of a traditional hub and spoke model. So that was the first big move that we did. So now we have regional hubs that support our mini hubs, and we have 6 mini hubs. We have 1 regional hub. We have a second regional hub coming online in Albuquerque. And so that's the first thing, was we had to build the infrastructure. Now we send all of our drivers, whether they're in a regional hub or a mini hub, they go to the hub location, they get all the materials that they need for that route, which is all packed the night before, because again, we're tied into EID systems, so we have that level of inventory, so we know, or at least we believe we know what is sold, and we have backfill to cover that. The drivers go to each store every single week, using the technology that we developed, and now it's it started as just the revenue recognition component, like I mentioned, but then it's morphed into driver efficiency. Why is this driver spending 21 minutes at this stop and 16 at this? How come there's so much windshield time between this location and that location? What can we do for route management and make that more efficient? So these are all the things that we're doing that most companies that are in our spot, they're little mom and pop companies. They've been around for a while and they drop ship, or they just do what they've been doing forever. Then you have the major companies, the big companies that want really nothing to do with what we're doing at all. They're, the Hackneys, the McLeans, they're monsters. They're 128-year-old companies, 148-year-old companies. And a lot of these companies built their technology rails back in the 1990s. 80s in some cases. And so we started at the pinnacle of technology. Like all of our technology is started where we have the most access to the greatest things. And so our answer is yes to everything, not no. We want to try and figure out how to make these things work. And you want to talk about an industry that's ripe for disruption from a technology standpoint. It's the gas stations and convenience stores. And so we're competing with, these major distributors, but instead of competing head to head, what we've realized over the last couple of years is you go to any convenience store or gas station in the country, look around. 80 to 85% of all the products that you see, they're distributed by the big ones, the Hackney, the McLean's, Frito-Lay, Coke, Pepsi, Red Bull, etc. But when you look at the 15 to 20% that's not, that's the major pain point. And that's the market we're trying to not just enter, but dominate. I mean, it's highly fragmented, and they've been experiencing rapid growth ever since COVID. And a lot of those product categories, either the big companies are not nimble enough to understand that category and get into that space, or they just say we're too big, we don't care, and we love that because we're happy to take the crumbs, because the crumbs are coming off of a $327.6 billion industry. Happy to take those crumbs. Those crumbs could be representative of $50 billion annually.
Yes, those really aren't crumbs in any way, shape, or size. Those are big slices that you can go after here. But with those kinds of big players and competitors, what it keeps you up at night that makes you worry either about the industry or what they're doing for you?
Well, see, I look at the world, I guess, probably differently, because a lot of people, they see problems. I always see the opportunities, because again, we're a smaller company, so we can react a lot quicker to these things. I am worried about legislation changing on some of the age-gated products. That absolutely keeps me up at night, which is why we're working so feverishly to have that represent such a smaller percentage of our total overall portfolio. Right now, it represents almost everything. Disposable nicotine vapes has been under attack. All the Delta Pot products have been under attack. I think we have a pretty good runway right now with the new administration coming in. I think that's very pro our business. and I think we're going to experience a lot of growth. But again, any local or state government can come in and say, we don't want to sell disposable nicotine vapes. We don't want to sell Delta 8 gummies. And so then we have to be ready to go because we already have had to pull product and move it into other areas. So, and then we have to replace that or else we lose the revenue. So I think the main thing for us, which keeps me up right now, is I need to raise capital. Like we've been doing this on a shoestring budget and we've been doing very, very, very well. We've invested just over $4 million over the last few years to get to where we are now. And we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot. And now I'm very comfortable with a couple things. One is we're diversifying our sales channels. So instead of just relying on our distribution to the gas stations and convenience stores via distribution, we're getting a call center established. We just announced that we're taking our entire infrastructure, our warehouse network, which all needs to be upgraded to ambient cooling, which allows us to do food products like beef jerky, potato chips, even merchandise like T-shirts and hats. Some of those retailers require us to have not swamp coolers, but ambient cooling with AC. So we're going to be upgrading our entire warehouse network. In doing so, on our regional hubs, we're going to be adding a cash and carry. And then our mini hubs, they're exclusively going to be a cash and carry. And so we're going to be launching probably 6 to 8 cash and carries over the next year. And that's going to put us in really unique markets where, quite frankly, there aren't any cash and carries. They've got to go drive. I'll give you the example. There's companies that will drive through Lubbock to get to Austin or through Lubbock to go to Dallas, to go to a major city, because that's where there are cash and carries. And so if we can help, these areas that don't have anything right now and make that available to them, we're going to do well. I don't know if we're going to light the world on fire. It's not like opening up in Las Vegas. It's like opening up in Pahrump, if you understand that. But there's still people that we would service, and we're taking an expense, which is a warehouse, and turning that into a potential revenue stream. So that we're really excited about. So again, I mean, I'm just wired differently, man. Like when I hear about these problems, I look at it as opportunities and find solutions for it. So.
Again, that is the natural entrepreneurial mindset right there. And I know we're going to have to wrap up in a minute, but you mentioned the administration, and I know you were just at Mar-a-Lago for a holiday party there. How was it for you?
I've been there before. The difference between when I was there in the past versus last week. The energy, man. The energy was so positive. Everybody was so happy. And some of these people I've known for a while, and there were some, hardcore Democrats in there. There were some progressive Democrats, and even then, they were caught up in how contagious everything was. I feel really good about what's happening right now with this administration. I really do, and I'm getting, hell for it because of being a leader previous leader in the Libertarian Party. I'm still a Libertarian. That's not changing. But it's like, why do we do this? Why did you start Students for Liberty? Like, what's the motivating factor? For me, it's like I want less government, not more. I want less regulations, not more. I want common sense government, not this crazy stuff that we've been dealing with. And so for me, I don't care what the vehicle is. If a Democratic candidate came out and said, I'm going to help you achieve your goals, I'm going to get behind that person. But what I think is really unique about this administration is look who Trump surrounded himself with. Most of them are former Democrats. You got Elon Musk, Vivek, who I think is a superstar. You've got Tulsi Gabbard, who's awesome. She's a rock star. RFK Jr. has completely changed my mind on food and what I put in my body. If I can't pronounce it, I'm not doing it. That never happened. So I think that you've got this really eclectic group of people that are like, enough is enough. We've got to get back on track. And I was listening to, it was Mark Anderson and Joe Rogan.
Mark Andreessen. Mm-hmm.
I preface, I always get it wrong. But he was even saying, he's like, there's a good sporting chance we could be entering into a golden era. And I believe that. And so instead of being an obstructionist and saying, oh, you're not libertarian enough, whatever the case is, I'm going to get behind the people that are making the change. And I want to help make that change as well. And who knows? We'll see what happens. Maybe I'll get back involved with politics because I am patriotic for the first time in a long time. A very long time. This is the first time I feel like, we're going to be negotiating on our toes, not on our heels as a country. And I think that if we can just keep this momentum going, and you want to know what keeps me up at night? The Mitch McConnell types. That mentality keeps me up because if they're obstructionists for what Trump is doing in his administration, and whether it's the appointments and trying to block them or whatever, I think you're going to see the Charlie Kirks and the Alexander McCobins and the Brett Pojunises and everybody else mobilizing for the 2026 midterms just to get rid of all these people that are in the way. And there's going to be more excitement and enthusiasm. That's what I think. But that's what we need. And I think more people should get patriotic. And again, it's not your side versus my side. I want what's in the best interest for the country. And we should all have that as our number one thing, not who our person is or who our guy is. And if when we do that, we're going to be successful. So that's where I'm at.
Brett, here. And you're already doing that and building up an incredible business, which is what we need more leaders to do. That's where American exceptionalism comes from. It is our innovation. It is our entrepreneurship. It is business leaders. And so I deeply appreciate your commitment to this, everything that you're building, and really appreciate you sharing all of this with the Liberty Ventures Network today.
Of course. And can I leave you on one point on that?
Please.
So equip us. That's what every entrepreneur that I know is saying. Give us access to capital. If we have capital, we can go and build. Right now, if I go to B of A or Chase or whatever, they say, well, what SBA program do you have? Well, that's not something that I could even take advantage of because I'm a publicly traded company. But it's like we need better access to capital. And that's something that got me into politics initially. That's what helped me stay around in politics. And that's one of the things we should all be fighting for. And that's what you're doing with Liberty Ventures. You're saying we're not going to let the government. We're not going to wait around for the government to do it. We're going to come in with our solution. I'm going to put a network together. I'm going to find people that can write checks. I'm going to find great entrepreneurs. I'm going to match them. We're going to offer mentorship programs. And that's what we need. So again, here, hats off to you, sir.
Hats off right to you as well, Brett. Thanks so much for everything that you're doing.
Absolutely. You as well, sir.